it's Alan. I don't know who's in there, but there is a party going on outside. Do you want to bring the punch?
Who possesses the courage to dare free Battle Beast?
That would be me.
This episode has Mark taking a trip into the future as he has to make a tough decision involving a psychotic king that's an old friend of his. Meanwhile, we see Eve and Mark get even closer, and we end this episode with a literal battle out of this world that brings back one of the most badass characters of the show who never disappoints. There's a lot to talk about in this breakdown and review of Season 3, Episode 4 of Invincible. Spoilers ahead. We open this episode with Rex and Ray, who are out shopping for food, as we continue to learn more and more about how effed up their childhood was. We find out that Ray's parents had her on a very strict diet when she was very young, and you can just tell that making this dinner for the team is very important to her, because you would imagine that she probably didn't have many family dinners when she was younger. Now Rex can tell that this dinner is important to Ray, which plays into my comments in my previous breakdown. They're definitely going to explore their relationship further, but as they continue to shop, there's a disturbance outside that needs their superhero attention. Again, I think the importance of the opening scene just speaks to what I've mentioned before, and that's Rex and Ray are getting together sooner than I anticipated and becoming more than just teammates and friends. Now secondly, I think that we are going to explore more of these characters like a Ray, like a Rex, like an Amanda, hearing and learning about their upbringing and exploring them more. And the reason I say that is because I believe like a character like Ray, who wants this to be a family, it's so important to her, and my best guess is they're going to be a family. They're going to be one whole good happy family, and something tragic is going to probably happen. Now, meanwhile, Mark has Rudy examine the drone that exploded in his hands in the final moments of episode 3. Now, unfortunately, it's too damaged to find out who's behind creating this, but the message was fully received by Mark. It's clear that they know where he lives and who he is, and more importantly, they know his family. Now, like I initially thought, we see Mark believes that this technology has to come from somewhere familiar as he pays a visit to the Pentagon. We watch as Mark tears through the reanimant as Cecil reactivates the sound waves. Now Mark shows him why he's here, but Cecil lets him know that he's not spying on him, because if he was, Mark would never know. Now as we watch as Mark leaves, and I just wish that he could have put his pride aside for just 2 seconds, right? To just ask Cecil if he can use his best technology to help him to find out who this belongs to. But luckily Cecil is smart enough to have his team look into this drone, as he admits to Donald that even though it wasn't their tech, that they are indeed still spying on the Graysons. Now we know that Cecil's smart enough to know that if he determines where this drone is coming from, that maybe Mark can see this as like an olive branch and he could slowly begin trusting him again. Now we see that Mark is running late for his date with Eve, who's waiting for him in France. Now things are going pretty well on this day, but unfortunately a mysterious portal opens and out comes the twins, Flight Master and Dropkick, who need Invincible to stop what he's doing because they need his help ASAP. Now Mark isn't going, as they use the classic line that normally works for the superheroes to join a fight, but Mark isn't gonna budge and he doesn't change his mind. Now as the twins pretend to be leaving, we see Eve make sure that he's okay with staying, and just as he's about to respond, we see the twins take him through their portal. Now I love this show so much, but I'll be honest with you all, this show isn't the best at always continuing up like subplots. For example, the twins. Sometimes when we meet the mummy or other side characters, it can take multiple episodes or full seasons before we see them again, so I was shocked to see the twins just return so soon after episode 1, which let me know immediately that they must be important to the overall story of what's going on with Mark this season. Now clearly Mark is pissed, but they strike a deal that they would prove themselves to be good guys, and if Invincible helps, they'll return the Declaration of Independence that they stole back in episode 1. Now as they get closer to their destination, Mark gets a taste of how tricky time travel works, as he's introduced to a future version of himself who comes through a portal to grab his clothes. Now we get a call back to this moment later in the episode, but in my mind I'm like, hey, Mark at least knows that he survives this mission by seeing a future version of himself. Now as they arrive to the destination, we see the catastrophic dystopian effects after centuries of war against his king, and we see that the war resulted in multiple losses and the twins were a part of that. Now I just absolutely love this animation style in this sequence as we learn the story behind what happened. As we see centuries into the future, the planet was on the brink of collapse, but one mysterious man was named ruler. Now for a while things were good, but all of a sudden they changed. Slowly the king went mad and created new laws and ruled with an iron fist, as he began to create unnecessary wars and killed millions, creating the rebellion. Here's where the Declaration of Independence comes into play, as they built a time machine because they were led to believe that the ink would provide a poison that would kill the king, but unfortunately it didn't work. Now, after hearing the story, Mark asks if this king was a Viltrumite, but they've never heard of what a Viltrumite actually is. Now, the twins draw attention to themselves to get the king's guard to arrive, and they do. Now, as the guards arrive, we see Invincible eliminates them within seconds before knowing that they were the best way to get to the king by intentionally getting captured, which they end up doing, but we see Mark still doesn't know the king's name. Now, the royal guards scan Invincible and tell him that they've been waiting for him. Now, as they arrive to the king's palace, they get separated as Invincible learns that they're about to be executed, and he's going to help them, but they tell him that they're going to take care of themselves, and Invincible needs to focus his energy on stopping their king. As Invincible approaches the throne, he meets this king, and it's the one and only Immortal. Now, Immortal is happy to see Mark and mentions how long it's been since he's seen Mark since he left with his family. Now, when the Immortal says that Mark left with his family, was he implying his father Nolan and his brother Oliver and they're still alive during the future sequences, or was he saying that his family was Eve and possibly their future kids? Now, Immortal also comments on Mark looking skinny and being sick again and mentions a cure, but Invincible doesn't want to follow up with any questioning what he meant by that because he's not here from himself. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I'm personally interested to see if we'll ever see that version of Mark that it was speaking of maybe seasons from now, and we get to meet this Emperor Invincible. Now, Immortal says that he had to force his hands, and that was his reason to why he ruled with such cruelty, referring to Invincible using the force of hand, as he said that this is the only way to get him back. Now, Immortal reveals that it was Invincible who was Emperor, and he left him in charge after he mysteriously left Earth, knowing that it would be too much for Immortal to handle, as he says,
"You should have known it was too much for me, especially after so long."
We can clearly see that Immortal is unstable as he chokes Invincible for not remembering. Immortal says that the man that he remembers died long ago and outlived all his wives, including Kate, who he doesn't even remember. Immortal demands that Invincible repay his debts and owes him by ending his torment by killing him and freeing humanity. As Immortal continues to blame Invincible for making him out to be a monster, but we know Invincible doesn't want to kill, which makes this a very difficult decision, as Immortal forces him to kill him by forcing a fight to the death against Invincible. Now, after being thrown around and not engaging in his one-sided fight, Invincible refuses to get on the offense and he won't kill Immortal. Now, we see the twins manage to break free of the robots and they enter the throne room to see their plan is actually working. Now, Immortal realizes that Invincible isn't taking the bait to kill him and sees the twins as an opportunity to show Invincible who he's become and sets his sights on killing the twins. Now, Invincible stops him from killing the twins, but still doesn't fight Immortal until he continuously punches him in the face and begs him please. As Invincible realizes there's no stopping him and has to do the one thing he doesn't want to do, but he says enough and he rips off Immortal's head. Now, Invincible isn't trying to hear from the twins, who are trying to get him to understand what he did was the right thing and he saved so many lives, but again, Invincible doesn't believe it's enough to justify what he just did. As the royal guards arrives and they transfer the authority back to the people, a final order preset from Immortal. Now, I love this nice callback to the future Mark getting the clothes back from earlier. I'm a big fan of science fiction. I love time travel, but I hate when shows and movies don't answer little things like this or show us certain results. So I love the little detail of showing that it was the Mark from after killing Immortal, and it explains why he was so upset while doing that because of what he just did. But speaking to the situation that we just saw Mark go through, I really enjoyed seeing Mark experiencing the gift and the curse of having his abilities and what they can possibly lead to. Now, like I mentioned, I love time travel. It can be a very delicate topic to cover, and I don't know what ramifications or consequences will come of killing the future version of Immortal. Will Immortal 9 have any impact on his past, or by killing him, did Mark create some branch timeline that is now altered because of what happened, and will Mark not leave in the future with his family like Immortal said that he would? Now, Mark returns back to his timeline, back to his date in France with Eve, and he asks her if he's a good person, and he tells her what he just experienced. Again, a valuable lesson learned by Mark, and seeing the effects of being gifted with immortality and seeing how that can change a person even if they mean well or have saved lives in the past. It made me think about the famous quote, "You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain." Couldn't be more true in this particular situation. As we see, Eve tells Mark,
"Well, the future version of you isn't you either. Whatever that was, it wasn't our future. Not anymore, at least."
as they make a promise to each other to stop one another if they ever become immortal, as they head back to America to return the Declaration of Independence. But they also continue their date as they fly across the world, as we get flashbacks of where they used to be to where they are now. As we end this part 1 of the episode by watching Mark and Eve in the sky admitting their love for one another as they head back to his house to have sex for the very first time.
And so, dear audience, we once again turn our attention elsewhere to give young Mark Grayson and Samantha Eve Wilkins the privacy they deserve. This very moment, light years away, Alan the alien sits in a Viltrumite prison cell. Alan the alien, locked down, but not out.
Now, as we enter part 2, and after we get that fun recap of all the events in space between Alan and Nolan, we even see Alan's failed experiments. Now, Nolan is committed to staying and doesn't want to escape his punishment of death against betraying his mission from his kind, and tells Alan about the Viltrumites that are coming to execute him. As they wait for death to come, it arrives as the Viltrumites are here. Now, they take Nolan and begin his punishment by physically beating him up for all his crimes. Meanwhile, Alan comes across their captors and releases all the prisoners to create a distraction. Now, I don't know why Alan didn't just take out the guards by himself. We all know he's fast enough and strong enough to do so, but we see the prisoners he released actually get killed in this scuffle, but I don't even care about that because this is a moment and a character that I've been waiting to make a return since season 1. Now, I don't know how they got captured, but I don't care because we get the return of Battle Beast. Now, Alan clearly is unaware of who he is, as Alan says to Battle Beast,
Will there be opponents worthy of my strength?
Yes. I mean, absolutely, yes.
Now, Alan sets the parameters of this rescue mission, which is Battle Beast gets to fight 2 worthy Viltrumites, as Nolan isn't to be killed, but the other 2 are fair game, as Battle Beast agrees to these terms. As we get this glorious battle sequence, as we see Battle Beast and Alan kill their enemies, as we cut between that and seeing Nolan admitting his betrayal was worth death, he tells the Viltrumites that he's sad that they'll never understand what he experienced, as we get to see Battle Beast in full glory, and him and Alan are just doing complete carnage to their enemies and just going through them like butter. Now, they arrive to find what Alan mistakenly took them to the wrong place, and Battle Beast believes that he's been deceived and wants to battle against Alan. Now, at the very last second, Alan senses where Nolan is and he's about to die, but they arrive just in time. I love seeing Battle Beast like a kid at a candy shop as he finally gets to face off, and I don't mean this in no disrespect, Mark, but he gets to face off against a worthy Viltrumite. Now, Alan tries to free Nolan, but gets stopped by one of the Viltrumites, who begins beating Alan to death, which sparks Nolan from breaking free and standing up for Alan and finally fighting back. Look, I can seriously watch Viltrumites fight for hours. I mean, I just love the brutality in which they fight by and the morals that they have, but we see Nolan knocking out his opponent as the guards return, and the action just levels up from here. Alan sticks one of the guards' heads out of the ship and uses this opportunity to open up the ship into space to kill the remaining guards, but Alan isn't sure if Battle Beast can survive space, which luckily he can, as they take the fight outside. And just as I thought it couldn't get any better, we see Nolan and Alan smashing the head of a Viltrumite, killing him together as a team. Now, we get a very big moment here as Nolan drops a major reveal to Alan, who wants to immediately leave before the reinforcements arrive, as Nolan tells them that he can relax because
There are fewer than 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites left in the universe. This is the Empire's most closely guarded secret. It's also why we can beat them.
As we end this amazing episode back at the Grayson's household, where Debbie almost catches her son with his new girlfriend, as we watch Eve and Mark share a laugh together, and they say that they need to get their own place. This marks 3 episodes for me that lets me know that we're potentially entering the season 1 territory with its true epicness. I love how the first half showcases the fear that Mark will have, knowing that one day he could become what Immortal became after suffering so many losses and allowing pain to turn him into this ruler fueled by anger. But then to see the new relationship between Eve and Mark, and seeing just how different it is between Mark and Amber, because Eve knows the responsibility that comes with his abilities, and we also know as an audience that they don't have to worry about them being heroes getting in the way of their relationship because they understand one another. Now, this doesn't mean that their relationship is going to be perfect, but I just feel like though they're going to be really good together because they can relate more and hopefully make each other stronger and better, but also hold each other accountable as well. Now, I really do hope that we get some closure maybe with the twins, then they can make a return because I like them as characters and I would like to see how their timeline turn out after regaining their freedom of their people. I'm also very excited to see if Cecil will discover that the drone came from Angstrom, but I'm even more excited to see Mark's reaction to learn that he didn't kill Angstrom that he thought he did, and he's been like punishing himself for that. And I'm just very curious to see his reaction to finding out that he's alive in general and what that means for him and his family and his new girlfriend. Now, as far as the second half is concerned, besides the recap, which I didn't really need because I remembered everything from the last season, but besides that one thing, everything else was purely entertaining and delivered everything I love about this show when it comes to the action being top-notch, brutal action sequences that we saw, including the incredible Battle Beast. Which, speaking of Battle Beast, I assume that he won the fight versus the Viltrumite, and I would hope that he will return sooner rather than later because whenever he's on screen, he never disappoints. Now, as one new relationship grows between Mark and Eve, I am beyond excited to see this new relationship between Alan and Nolan as Nolan hits this long and tough road of forgiveness and redemption that he has ahead of him. This will end my recap and breakdown of episode 4 of season 3 of Invincible. I just thought this was an absolute banger of an episode. Now, if you all appreciate the breakdown, do me a favor, hit the like button, but more importantly, let me know your thoughts about this episode in the comments below. Your favorite moments, what did you think about the growing of the relationship between Eve and Mark and maybe them getting to place together, but also this relationship that we have between Nolan and Alan. Will Battle Beast come back? What did you think? What did you love? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And also, if this is your first time to the channel, welcome to the community. Stick around, check out some other content. If you enjoy what you like, consider subscribing to the channel today. And also, if you want to support the channel even further, consider joining the channel memberships. Don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next video.